Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Sunday night breakdown. Daniel Routledge and Dave Forrester off his sick bed for the audience, Dave. I like that commitment to break down all
Absolutely.
the action. Obviously, trophy final weekend, final four. Do you want to touch on the European games? It was a good week for British Basketball League teams. Newcastle beating
Oh, it was a
Liège,
great game in Newcastle. I loved
Bristol
it.
beating Svenborg, and a big win for the Lions against Besiktas.
Yeah, Bristol have qualified, which is
Yeah,
brilliant.
yeah,
Watching Newcastle start on Candy
yeah,
beat Liège, that was an incredibly fun game actually because it was two totally different types of team.
yeah,
Liège were giant and
yeah.
slow, and Newcastle were quick, and the two guards just destroyed them. They couldn't guard the two guards, and sometimes we underestimate the level of guard play in our league.
Yeah,
Watching a good level Holland Belgium league team. I think they're 10-6.
yeah,
Watch two guards go for 28 and 11 and 26 and 12 or something like that, or 26 and 13. You know, was really quite interesting. Yeah, that was great. Thoroughly
yeah,
enjoyed it.
yeah,
It was a kind of you know it was one of those moments whereby I wish you were back involved again.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
A
yeah.
game
Well,
like
I
that.
was just, I was just excited to see Theo Riley on the court because
Yeah, Theo.
I'm tenuously related to him.
Really?
Yeah, yeah, very tenuously.
Uh,
He's my niece's cousin.
Well,
So
Theo's a good kid. He came through the Eagles Academy,
yeah,
and then he'd been playing Nottingham, I think, last year. Might be wrong.
yeah,
Went off to college briefly in America, and I think he's at Newcastle University this year. So they
yeah,
brought up a couple of Newcastle University guys, including an
yeah.
American guy
The
called
American
Justin
guy played
Martin.
well, I thought.
Very good,
Yeah, yeah,
very good, very athletic defensively, and stayed in his lane. Didn't make any mistakes, and got a
yeah,
couple
yeah,
of risk rebounds. But no, it was just fun. I mean, the word that we got was that Liège were €2.5 million budget team.
yeah.
In that league. I think in that league there's a minimum salary of about a million and a half.
I think I don't know what the rules are to get into EMBL, but I know for the other European competitions in Belgium there are licenses that you have to spend
Yeah.
to play in at European level, and I think the A or gold license or whatever it is 2.5 million, and I think the
Yeah,
B
or
license
something
is
like that.
either
I mean,
one
it's,
or
so, so it was a
1.5.
substantial kind of win against the odds,
Yeah,
and we've had a
yeah,
bit of a precursor for the rest of the week, haven't we?
yeah,
There.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
so yeah, so no, it was great, and there was no, and the game ran smoothly, and I'm back on the TV timeouts thing.
mm,
There was no TV timeouts, and it just and there was some technicals at the end, and people lost their blob a bit. It was great. It was fun. It
yeah,
was old style.
yeah,
Actually,
and
more fun in there watching it with 1,500 people than 3,000.
mm,
It might really sound
interesting,
crazy.
yeah, yeah,
Everyone's
yeah.
into the game.
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
know,
Everybody knows what's going on.
probably you're not selling as much. You're not selling as much, sugary crap.
Yeah, yeah.
But everyone's into the game. It's a Tuesday night, so if you're only going to be there if you really want to be there,
Mm,
so it's good. And the Bristol game, Bristol,
mm.
fantastic.
I saw the first half of that. I was doing Eurocup on Wednesday night, and that was early enough that I saw the first half, and they just
Mm.
dominated it from what I could see.
Well, I mean, I think we're beginning to understand now with a reasonable body of evidence where some of these leagues are in comparison to us, and we
Mm,
benefit from having the extra Americans allowed.
mm,
That does make a difference. Um, but we don't need to be looking at But if 2 years ago you'd said kind of a half strength British team might beat a Belgian team, you'd look like you're mad. That's
mm,
not going to happen. Or we're going to go to Denmark or go to where else did they go? Bristol went to somewhere in Eastern Europe and won by about
mm,
20 early on in the
mm,
season. Can't maybe Romania, can't remember. And so what that's going to do on the macro level is going to increase the visibility of our league for agents,
mm,
and it's going to help us get better players
mm,
into this country because they're going to be more respectful of the level of play because we had no visibility previously, which meant that they weren't respectful of the level of play when really they should have been.
mm.
So and
And
then
beyond London as well,
and then
beyond
and
the yeah.
beyond London and the in 777, and so yeah, so I'm talking about the league as a whole, and it's a bit difficult when I kind of talk about the league. It's kind of almost implicit that I'm not really I'm kind of taking London out of that because I
Yeah,
don't
yeah, yeah, yeah.
See that they're in a different commercial strategy and a different stratosphere financially to the rest of the league. So I'm talking about the league, if it raises up towards London, or the league post London, whatever happens with London, and it can only be good for us. It's I mean the NBL, just on the side of that, it's really been, I think, almost more kind of crowd friendly, having a schedule which runs kind of 8 games over 4 months.
Yeah.
Than the Euro Cup, whereby you play like 6 games in 7 weeks.
Yeah,
and then it's done.
And then it's
You know what I mean? Because it's always something to kind of look forward to. They're not playing a game every week. They're not being dragged around everywhere. They're not desperately battling to get to the next phase. They've got something to look at. So I kind of quite like the structure for 4 teams in kind of Newcastle, Bristol, Sheffield, Leicester situation. It kind of fits well with what with the BBL, with the British Basketball League season. So I think that's been a positive kind of innovation on the league. And I was a bit skeptical at the beginning because you don't know what it's going to be.
The only question I had is, do the commercial bits of it stack up to the, obviously you recruit a slightly different roster, and you've obviously got to sell tickets on a Tuesday night, and you've got to fly to the other side of the continent and all of that. So, but I'm not on the board at Newcastle or Bristol to know.
No, but that was absolutely always the question. I mean, and the issue is, can you make more money out of the home games than you have to spend on your away games?
Yeah, exactly.
That's the reality of it. I mean, I know, because I was involved very briefly in kind of discussions about the EMBL, that the kind of the upfront kind of commitment isn't that great. And when we looked at some of the kind of the flight costs, and it's not that different to getting to Plymouth. Or not getting to Plymouth, depending on, it's easier to fly, So I think doing kind of one trip every month is more doable than if you're doing it every week. But I don't imagine they've made money on it, either team. But I don't
my
imagine
thing is, have they not lost money?
No, I don't imagine that they've lost money, which is at the point whereby it's putting the businesses at risk, which has always been the problem in the past. Because every other team, and of course the biggest thing for that from that,
the reality is, the reason we say all this, because me and you've been around long enough to know that in the last 20 years there's only one team played in Europe and been in the league 5 years later, and that's Leicester.
Yeah, it's Leicester. Yeah, absolutely. It's basically, you play in Europe, you push too far, you go bust. That's the way it's always been. And of course, the bigger thing on this is what we always talk about, which is venues. At the end of the day, a home game for Newcastle with 1,500 people in there is worth more than 1,500 ticket sales.
Of course.
It's funding. The building is there. They've got the sponsors coming in. They've got the corporate area. They've got the secondary spend. All that stuff. It just changes the dynamics of the whole thing. So toe in the water, pretty successful. Where they call it, I think they play away this weekend, this Tuesday, I think, in Estonia. Do Newcastle, Bristol have already qualified, which is fabulous. And Bristol will probably get voluntary, I think, if they finish 4th, which is likely. That's 2 legs. So again, it's one home game, one away game. So it's not, it's not massively undoable. So that's really good. And then London against Besiktas. London were fantastic. Albeit Besiktas were it was like watching a team play in the 1990s. I thought they're they were very one out offense. They had the one that got away from Leicester playing for them.
Yes, they do. Yeah. Matthews.
Jonah Matthews.
Yeah. Jonah Matthews.
He couldn't make a shot. I don't think he missed much. He couldn't make them. Well, that's the first time I've seen him play, and he obviously must be up to it if he's playing for Besiktas. But
and he played in EuroLeague 2 years ago.
Did he really? Well,
yeah. Him and Parker Jackson Cartwright were in the same backcourt. That Asvel, I think it was.
Yeah, they just looked. They looked very out of sync, and London just basically took it to them. And I think the advantage, it must have been quite energizing for the London guys having the gym full. You've got 2,000 Turkish fans there, and you want to shut them up in your own gym. And it was a really, really impressive win. to the point whereby he didn't really appear to be in doubt, and they couldn't score, and they didn't spread the court, and they played very much one out basketball. Great win for London.
So let's go to the trophy action and start with the semi-finals on Saturday. London Lions 85, Caledonia Gladiators 75. No Nwaba for London. Obviously, Decker is still out as well. Two early fouls for Farah Ali Hodgic. So he left the game after 4 minutes. They were already ahead at that point, and there weren't too many shots dropping in this game. And certainly not early on. And so Gladiators, having had the early lead, kept the early lead.
I thought London would. I've said it on Twitter. I thought they were hubristic the whole weekend. I really did. I thought, that they treated it. And I don't know what injuries they've got. I don't know what level of fatigue they've got going on in that group because they played lots of games, big emotional game against Besiktas. But I thought they treated it like another weekend. I thought starting Solowade, not personally. Well, let's start not playing Nwaba. Now I'm old fashioned, but if you're fit enough to play on Sunday, you're fit enough to play on Saturday. And unless you're ill, okay. I don't get that. I think that again was. I think they've been guilty of overthinking the whole weekend, and there's a difference, and this is where probably the one area of this podcast where I get to kind of lord my experience over Peter Bosic, right? Because the man who knows 100,000 times more about basketball than I do, okay, but has never been. Well, I'm pretty sure has never been through as a coach. I know has never been through as a coach a British Basketball League Final Four, or a British Basketball League Trophy Final, Cup Final, or playoff final, and we did about 30, and and I learned from Holly very quickly all the different, and just as the Leicester guys will learn from Rob, all the different things that go into that mean that it is a totally different environment to everything. And we spent, the vast majority of our time going into finals preparing our players for what it was going to be like. Now,
it is different, and there's no real way of explaining why it's different and how it's different, but everything is different about it. From you get 20 minutes warm up instead of an hour. You've got to shoot on the hoop over the back outside of the curtain, which isn't the same hoop that you're going to shoot on. You've got this weird bolt that you've got this going on. It is different. It's just different.
The biggest stress, absolutely. The biggest stress for me was always, that we had this timetable whereby we had to be out of the locker room at a certain time. And Fab was always, no, we ain't going out. We ain't standing in the cold. We'll come out when we want to come out. And I'm I'm trying to referee between him and the league officials.
Because probably coming to tell you to come.
Time after time. And it's like, whatever. And I'm like, oh, we need to go. And he's like, hey, we ain't going yet, Dave. We ain't going. Whatever. We because there's nothing to do. You stand in the back and you're getting cold. And you want, and there's a great deal of swagger in the way that you approach the whole thing, just from getting there early. Are you going to sit in the back row and watch? Are you going to sit at the back? Are you going to go straight to the locker room? How are you going to pass that time? If it's the second leg. And you're right, it is just absolutely different. I'm not saying there's a right way, because obviously, we lost nearly as many as we won, so there's no particular science to it, but it is massively different in the way, because you're getting teams playing 250% different, harder, more motivated, and for putting the show on, whatever, finals MVP, whatever. The focus level goes right up, which is what we've lost this year by not having as many of these games. And I don't think they got it. I just don't think they got it at all. I mean, starting Solowade, who hasn't played for 3 months, basically, he's played a few minutes here and there. Put him in the starting lineup. I don't think Colin Morgan started. I'm not sure if he did. He didn't start today. They just came out absolutely flat, I thought, defensively in particular. The coach gave them a little bit of rope, but I like Caledonia now. I like them better than I've liked them all season, because they've gone with Bothwell at the point guard, and now he's settled, even because he's new. Now, I don't know if that's going to cause any issues with DeBose down the line, but DeBose is just getting back into health, so he's not going to cause any issues at the moment. And with that group, their biggest issue all season has been their production off the bench. a starting lineup with Ali Hozic kind of in the middle, and Onwas, Poliza, Whelan, and Dubose has been fine. It's been probably one of the top five player units in the league. But the bench has been, bit of a dumpster fire, to use an American phrase. And and to be honest, I apologize for that because I've heard enough of them this weekend. So bringing in, having Bothwell, and Bothwell's looked far more comfortable starting than he did on the bench.
Mm.
He
Yeah,
has,
yeah, he has. Yeah,
undoubtedly.
yeah, he
And
was good.
what got me about Lions' unpreparedness was the way that they defended Bothwell from the very beginning. The first play of the game, or the second play of the game, he's given a downhill left hand drive, and Tariq Phillips fouls him, and he makes the hand one. And you're looking at him, look, this guy's shooting 2 of 19 from 3 all season. And the whole game he got to go, they were guarding him. Sometimes when you're a team, when you're that good, when you know you're that good, you can kind of think we don't need to,
Worry
be
about them.
utterly,
Yeah. Well,
utterly.
I said it on Twitter because Rowe had put a thing out, and I agreed with what he'd said. I said London looked like at halftime looked like a team waiting for a talent run. Just to
Yeah, no, absolutely. And the problem with that is, as I say, they gave up 52 points to Caledonia in the first half, and Caledonia played well, but they got the shots that they were meant to get,
yeah, yeah.
and they did what they were meant to do. And to be honest, Bozic had to go at them halfway through the second quarter, having given them the chance and put the bench and given them the chance, and it just wasn't happening. And that suggested to me that there was a little lack of kind of focus on going into the game.
So just to drift us through,
Yeah,
Bothwell and
yeah,
Moore in a
sorry.
12-4 run had them 17-26 ahead. And then in the second quarter, Malcolm hit a couple of threes, Bothwell again. And with 3:20 to go to halftime, it's 35-50. So Caledonia had scored 50 points in basically 16 and a half minutes.
Yeah, and that was the game actually. The next 2 minutes, you often say it, time out with 12, time out with 2 minutes to go, they're up 12, and it ends up 8 instead of 16. That's a big difference. But with London, the 8 points is a minute and a half. And Caledonia are a team that has had droughts. But the I think the point I was saying was, I don't think London were committed to a scouting report. I mean, they guarded Whelan well, but apart from Whelan, it was almost like you'd see they just written Whelan's name on the board, and everybody else was like, okay, what they're going to do what they're going to do. There's no excuse for letting Bothwell get downhill as much as they did. And Moore took it to them inside, and they can physically compete inside. But eventually, they were able to, and this is the difference between this game and the Cheshire game. Caledonia have droughts, and at times their offense can get stuck, and at times they don't necessarily have the individual ability like Cheshire do just to pull a play out of nowhere.
Yeah. So
And that's what happened in the third quarter.
Lions cut it to 44-52 halftime. They were 1 of 10 from 3 at halftime, which fits with my bowl theory. 30-12, the bench points.
You must have a stat on that though. Come on.
Yeah, it's one of them where there are just things I remember. I remember a game where you beat Leicester actually, and
Yeah,
Leicester
Leicester
missed
missed their
a
10 foul shots in the fourth
ton of
quarter.
free
Yeah, they
throws in
couldn't
the
make a
fourth
foul shot.
quarter,
Great.
and and in the first half you'd not missed as many as that,
Yeah.
but you'd missed some and then didn't miss any in the second half.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
just stuff like that sort of you remember, and whether there's any evidence to it.
2012 playoff final. They couldn't make a
Yeah.
foul shot. Remember it well.
I daren't look it up because I might be wrong.
No, you're right. They were 0-9 in the fourth quarter.
While I
It was cracker.
I can just say I think it is, that's all right,
Yeah,
isn't it?
fair enough.
So Bothwell had 12 and Moore 13, by the way, at half time. And
Yeah.
it was 30-12 bench points in favor of Caledonia at half time. The lead got to 10 again, but Lions finished the third quarter 10-2, tied it at 61-61. And that was the point I thought where actually what you have to do is forget what you had. This is really easy for me to sit here and
Yeah.
say this. Forget that you were up 15. It's 61-61. You've got 10 minutes to win a quarter and you win the game. That
Yeah, I mean,
you'd have taken that at the beginning of the game.
oh, absolutely. But they'd squeezed them. They'd held them at 9 points in the third quarter. The easy buckets weren't coming. And the thing with London is even if you're playing with them, we found out today they're still going to score 85. You're going to have to get up in the 90s or the 80s and 90s, and to do that you need guys who at times can just flat out score or take it on themselves, and to play with a certain degree of reckless abandon. And in fact, Caledonia didn't really have that. I thought they played a pretty well structured game, to be
Mm.
honest. I thought they did the things they were meant to do. They guarded well. They played physically. Um, I'm really now quite high on them for the rest of the season. I think they've ironed out the stuff that they needed to iron out with the personnel. I'm not sure. I think they're probably about 6 weeks, probably 6 weeks to 8 weeks late in doing that. I think they could have done it earlier. But I think they're going to be a tough team towards the end of the year, obviously subject to health. I'm not even sure if they've replaced Buttrick yet. I don't know if they're going to replace him. I think they've got another American spot. Um, so I'm quite high on them, but you need to have someone who can get you a bucket, and they didn't. And unfortunately, droughts against London kill you because
Mm.
London are going to score off their defense.
And then in the fourth quarter, Sharmaran won, Morganam won. London scored 9 in a row to 74-66. And I actually at that point thought, oh, that's probably that. I won't note anything down. And then Onwas got fouled on a 3 and made it 2-3 throws, and I was like, oh, this is a 3-point game here with 2 minutes to play. They're still there. But then next play down, Grantham with a 3. He was 1 of 9 shooting at that
Yeah.
point. Hits a 3 on the shot clock buzzer to make it
Yeah, I mean,
79-73.
they had gone small in the third quarter to try
Mm,
and open it up a little bit, but they really didn't have much option because
mm,
Conor Morgan was playing like a drain and Grantham couldn't
mm,
make a shot. They didn't have Nwaba. So, Solowadi is your next power forward, basically. He's not going to play Sharma and Olaseni together. So that helped him a little bit. What it did was it spaced out Caledonia just enough for Sharma to get into the seams
mm,
and to get his rolls going to the rim. And unfortunately, I thought Caledonia's schemes were quite solid, but the kind of individual athleticism of Sharma is something that's difficult to kind of legislate for when you're drawing up a game plan.
mm,
And so he managed to get himself to the rim at times. He got a couple of not cheap offensive rebounds because he's big than everybody else, big offensive rebounds. Ends up the game 8 of 9. The kind of backup center that every BBL team would kill to have, really.
mm, mm.
Um, and you're right. I mean, you didn't think that. The only thing that then got interesting was, Jordan Taylor had a little hissy
Yeah.
fit at the end.
So 128 to go. Taylor gets his 5th foul and gets a technical on his way out the door as well. So Wheeler made the free throw. Bothwell then made 1 free throw, and it's 79-75, and Taylor's on the bench, not looking
Yeah, I mean,
happy.
I thought Taylor was a little bit unlucky with the 3-point foul
Mm,
call against him because there's about 3 or 4 times this weekend on the games I've watched, the refs have rather anticipated that kind of landing space thing,
mm,
whereby the defenders jump forward at the 3-point shot, but jump to the side of the player.
mm,
So he's not ended up right in it, right under his feet. He's actually they've challenged the shot, but they almost like they're flying past,
yeah.
like Jordan Craig Elo stuff. And I'm not sure it necessarily looks like that from the refs' angles because the refs are side up, sideways on. So you don't necessarily get to see kind of that perception as to whether he's right under his feet or whether he's to the side of his feet. And I thought Taylor got called for one, which is a little bit unlucky, and then that just sent his head spinning.
Mm, mm,
Which means there's obviously been a little bit of talking going on earlier, because then he got called for a perfectly standard kind of riding Bothwell blocking foul as he was driving to the rim, for which I couldn't see any argument. And yeah, and then very unusually for him, Toys relocated from Pram.
yeah, yeah. So
Um,
the other end of the floor, then Morgan with a drive, 111 to go, misses. Olusoni tips it, and then almost pulled the net. So it was called a goaltend, 81-75. So timeout, and then Gareth gets a technical during the break. The lights were down. It was hard. I mean, he was on the court shouting. So I assume.
yeah, well, to be fair to Gareth, I thought when I saw that play first time, I thought Olaseni had pulled the rim, and I
Mm,
thought they called it the wrong way. And in fact, they didn't. They called it the right way. But
mm,
absolutely spot on because it was almost on the replay. That's another argument for replay. Bog
mm,
standard. Gareth doesn't get that technical if the first thing the refs do is go, we're going to have a look at that the last 2 minutes.
mm,
Because at that point, he's not arguing the call because he knows what they're going to get the right call.
yeah.
Okay? The lack of
Or
um,
he can challenge it.
Or he can challenge it, yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I think last 2 minutes, anything like last two
yeah,
minutes, goal turned out of bounds, whatever. Just go to the screen. You play hard for 38 minutes. You don't want it stuffed up on something like that. There was the lack of replay is, it's difficult to say that the lack of something is kind of a blot on the landscape, because
mm.
by definition it's not a blot because it's not there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I
Well, there
suppose
was
there always has
one. There
been.
was one. Was it today or yesterday? There was one
Yeah,
today where Sharma went like that because obviously
yeah,
he's playing Eurocup. It's like the replay, and it can't remember what the
yeah.
call
And
was.
I mean, it just takes the temperature down so much.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
to be fair, the one thing about the Liège game was the refs did a really good job going to the screen at the right times.
Mm. Yeah, yeah.
For possible in sportsman likes, and then I think Mark got a challenge on an out of bounds call. And it didn't. It takes 30 seconds. It's not a.
Mm.
It is. It's unimaginable that we haven't got this.
Mm.
It's one thing that could not revolutionize, but simplify the game, improve the spectacle, and it's the same as test matches in the subcontinent, right? Before
Mm.
they had the DRS system,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
We had international incidents between England and Pakistan,
Mm.
because Mike Gatling was arguing with an umpire at square leg, calling him a cheat, and everybody used to hate each other at cricket
Mm.
because the West Indians were celebrating the catches down the leg side of come off the thigh pad and all this type of stuff. Suddenly, you put in the review system, it all goes away because there's
Mm.
no perceived sense of wrong, of injustice, because everybody knows everything's been done to get
There
it
was
right.
some perceived injustice this summer, to be fair,
Who was that?
with the Johnny Bairstow run out.
Oh yeah, well that was to be fair, yeah. Well that was just snidey Aussies, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's in the
That was
rules.
that was
The
the rules. Yeah, that was
yeah,
different. I get what you're saying. Yeah,
yeah.
that was
Let's
funny.
come back. Let's come back to the
By the
basketball.
way,
So
just on that, I know we're not
yeah,
making it's not an English cricket breakdown, but what they
yeah,
did this morning in India was quite unbelievable.
quite
And
impressive, wasn't it?
and Ben Stokes is probably, he's currently Forrester's number one hero for
Yeah,
everything,
yeah,
just
yeah,
his
yeah,
mentality and ability. But anyway, moving on.
yeah. So the Matt Morgan makes a free throw after the timeout. So it's now a 7 point game instead of a 6 point game. They advance the ball, um, get a great wheel and look like the play they drew up, exactly what they wanted. Doesn't go in. That's the ball
Yeah, it
game.
was a good play. I mean, they do, on what they run and the stuff that they do and the system that they play, they are well coached,
Mm,
Caledonia. The difficulty is you've got, as I say, and I thought they played really well in this game,
mm,
but they didn't knock down shots when it mattered, and they only scored 26 points or something like that in the second half, and you can't survive that. And it's that balance between, the systematic nature, kind of a la Sheffield, or the individualistic nature, a la Cheshire. You've got to kind of find that balance at times, because at times you need someone you can throw the ball to get you a basket.
mm.
And I'm afraid every team that's won stuff on a regular basis, you can go back to Colin Irish,
Yeah, yeah,
or
yeah,
Terrell
yeah,
Myers,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
or
yeah.
John Thomas at Cheshire, or John McCord, all the way through to Charles Smith and Drew Sullivan. They've had a guy that you could throw the ball to when it mattered to get you a basket.
Mm,
Even Fletcher, when Fletcher was playing in Crandall, eventually he was in control of the game. He was going to do it. And that's the one thing that they don't quite have yet. Now, obviously, Bothwell's the leading, but it's now the point guard. Dubose is just coming back. It might be it has been Dubose all season, but he's only just coming back from injury. So they didn't have it from him. And London survived, I think, what you would probably say in a fairly not unimpressive, but inconclusive manner.
mm.
They didn't
Yeah,
play
yeah.
particularly well. I mean,
No, they
they got
didn't.
nothing out of Grantham, nothing,
The weird thing is, I came away
nothing
from
out of
that.
Morgan.
Yeah, I came away from that game thinking Caledonia played well there and London did not, and yet London won by 10.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. But London turned the defense up. That's the way that you win those games. You turn the defense up at the end of the fourth quarter, in the third quarter, and you wait to see who cracks.
Mm. And a bit of friendly pushing and shoving in the handshake
Oh
line
yeah,
at the
I
end.
mean, to be fair, Faro. I mean, this was Jordan Taylor, because we saw the clip. It was Jordan
Yeah.
Taylor who, when he went to knock hands with Faro Alhodzic, he had something to say. I think he put his hand up potentially towards him there. So he was clearly ch chiving at, chomping at some bit in relation to something that happened on the court that we hadn't seen. Now, Faro is obviously he's from Nottingham, but I think he's Bosnian heritage.
Bosnian heritage. I believe he's a Bristol lad rather than a.
Yeah, but still lad with Bosnian heritage. So,
Yeah,
he's
yeah.
not probably a guy who's going to take a backward step. I think it's
Mm,
fair to say. And so when Taylor said something to him at the time, when you basically you shouldn't be doing that. When you've won the game, if you're gonna tap hands, you get out of there.
mm,
If you've lost the game, then you want to cause a fight. That just shows you're a bad loser. But if you won the game, just say nothing. You don't need to talk. Not at that point. You go and find him in the car park afterwards if you want to argue, but not during the line. And I don't think Jordan Taylor will be finding Farrell Hodgson in the car
mm,
park afterwards
mm,
either. But no, it was the first time I've seen Jordan Taylor frazzled.
mm,
These things are generally not necessarily insight into the player, but they're an insight into the mind of the team.
mm,
That he, that's, he's a consummate, he's probably the highest IQ player in the league.
mm,
He's consummate professional, everything that we've seen about him. Um, Understands the game, knows when he needs to step up, leads his team, leads the best team in the league, the most talented team in the league. And the fact that he wasn't right
mm,
indicated, there's always something below that.
mm,
Now, I don't know that doesn't necessarily mean it's something that's wrong with him, but the dynamic of the group, maybe that he's in charge of, maybe there's something there that he's not getting or seeing. And this is all speculation, but
mm,
it's informed speculation. If players act differently to the way they've always acted, if they're out of character, there is a reason generally.
mm,
It's not because of a bad call. He's had thousands of bad calls in his
mm.
career. He's
Yeah,
been
yeah.
fouled out of hundreds of games in his career. It's not about that. And I think we saw kind of an exemplification of that later today, because the team wasn't right today.
So Sharma, 8 of 9 shooting for 19 points. Olusheni, 18 points and 15 rebounds. Philip, 13 points and 9 rebounds. I've got 2 of 23 from 3. Is that right?
It might have been
Sounds,
three. Might have
yeah.
been three.
And they
Three,
shot 39% from the floor. Bothwell, 17.6 rebounds, 4 assists. More 14 points and 5 rebounds. Whelan, 10 points, 6 rebounds, 6 assists. They were 38% from the floor
But
and
this is the thing about a
5 of
good team, you
21.
see. Every reaction has a counter reaction. So yeah, okay, they've held up a 3 of 23. They've missed some shots. They've defended the 3-point line really well. But Olaseni and Sharma have gone for 37 on 65 or 70% shooting. Now if you're Caledonia, I mean that's the way I would go. I'd be far happier to give up that than to give up the barrage of threes, because I don't think you can sustain a barrage of threes. But it's very difficult to shut down everything.
Mm.
And ultimately, Sharma's easy baskets kind of took them over the line in this game.
Let's go to the second semi-final. Cheshire Phoenix 92, Leicester Riders 91. Obviously, there's no Shargwal with his dislocated finger. Leicester started well. Mackenzie, a similar 3 to the one he hit last week against Newcastle. They're out to a 5-14 lead.
Yeah, I thought the ball guy played really well. He was key to the game, the whole game. Because he got into foul trouble. That really impacted the game massively. I didn't think this was this was kind of a fairground roller coaster ride of a game. I thought it was the opposite of the first game. I thought it was an untidy game. I didn't think it was a particularly well played game insofar as I didn't see a tremendous amount of attention to detail from either team. I thought, but it was high octane stuff. It was up and down. I mean, it was going back to the days of yore, and 20 years ago, where basically everybody is going up and down and at each other, and the kind of game that kind of got our league the reputation of that type of league. The league we don't walk the ball up and pass the ball 7 times, and coaches don't stand there doing this. So they just went and played. And because of that, the game was always going to be one that was susceptible to runs, because that's the way both teams were. Interesting. I mean, the interesting thing for Cheshire was they started holding instead of Charleroi. That makes them even, I've talked already this year about kind of Cheshire being a bizarro team. That makes them even more bizarro, because you've got effectively 3 point guards in Rideau, Rideau, Holden, and Rye. They're basically point guards. They direct the offense. They facilitate it for others, but they're all totally different. And the way that and the other two guys on the court are White and Jack, who are
Mm.
literally touching the basketball to shoot it.
Yeah.
So literally
Yeah.
every single time either of those guys touches the ball, either Jack in the corner or White at the top, it's going up.
Mm.
So you got 3 point guards and two spot out shooters.
Yeah.
Yeah. So three guys going off the dribble, two guys looking to shoot it. And just it's a and I'm quite certain the team that passes the ball least in the league, that doesn't mean they have the least assists.
No.
They pass the ball the least.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, because they know where their spots are. Now, I mean, Skylar White got up 17 3 point
Yeah.
shots in this
Yeah. Yeah.
game.
Yeah.
He only played like 25 minutes.
Yeah.
You only have the ball half the time he's on the court.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's just like an incredible level of consistency in what you're doing.
Mm.
And the thing about Cheshire is, without whether it's right or wrong, and it's so far, you'd probably have to say it's verging on being right.
Mm.
They play in a way which is designed to maximize the offensive skills of each of their players.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, and they don't necessarily. At times it can be a bit ugly because at times if it goes wrong, there isn't really a backup plan.
Mm.
But they all have their jobs, and they all know absolutely what their jobs is. So Skylar White knows that my job is to shoot threes, whether I've made two or missed seven. He's going to be putting it up. And I didn't think Leicester. I thought Leicester probably needed to do a better job of dealing with some of Cheshire's pet players. They didn't do a good job on the pick and pop with White at all. You know, he got too many open threes off one pass. And where they didn't switch or they got the switches wrong, and at times they were giving up. You know, Rye is all about going left. You got to take Rye's left hand away, and they didn't take his left hand away. I could see because he's always going left to come back to his right to finish, and he was really really good in this game. But against that, you know, offensively, you know, Leicester are also pretty good. You know, and they're able to score. Actually, they did a good job putting holding on Allen because again, you know, if Allen is a scorer, but you can defend him, and he kind of at times has the risk of kind of going into that Nick Lewis territory whereby he's a scorer, but he's not feeling it, but it's still going up, and you know that you know, and so he ends. I think he ended this game 7 of 18. But that was after a second half kind of renaissance. So early on, he was struggling a little bit because they put size against him. And all their other guys, all Leicester's other guys are kind of more efficient than that. And I thought that made a difference. But the biggest difference was Mackenzie got into foul trouble. He was a little bit unlucky. It was a little bit unlucky, I thought. But, you know, the fouls were all callable fouls. They weren't, you wouldn't say that there was anything which was really wrong. There were times when he was sliding across, trying to take a charge, 50-50 contact. He just picked up a few of them, and they were, you know, just maybe another day he wouldn't have picked up.
So Rye got it back, and then around the first quarter break, Knicks had a 12-0 run to lead 30-24. Mackenzie got his third foul in the middle of the third quarter. Walker was 2 minutes behind him for his third foul.
Walker gave him good minutes early on because his size was able to impact Cheshire inside because they don't have much size inside. So Walker actually, you know, probably played his best game of the season.
And then with Mackenzie on the bench, and he didn't put Connor on at this point, so they played without really a proper point guard last few minutes of the second quarter, and Cheshire actually got the last 10 points of the second quarter. And then when White hit a couple of threes at the start of the third, they went 16 points in a row to 52-34.
I mean, they're such a spurtable team, aren't they? They're so spurtable. And you're right. And generally, and because they have this kind of almost unique makeup of both being a jump shooting team and being an athletic transition team, you generally don't get both of them at the same time. You know, your transition guys want to get to the rim all the time, but in fact, they're happy to put up threes wherever they want. You know, because of that, you know, if you go quiet offensively, then they're going to run the other way, and that's what they did at the end of the first half, I thought. And kind of begins. It's the Cheshire things. It's Ben Stokes again. He's playing without fear. Back your guy. This is what you do. You know, doesn't matter if you miss the first. Like, you know, but he had the spinner who went for 70 in the first 9 overs in the first innings, and he's took 7 wickets in the second innings. Skylar White misses the first 7 shots. It don't matter. You got to keep shooting your 8th and your 9th. You know, you're my guys. You're going to play. And there's something to be said for that clarity of thought in that
Uh,
situation.
yeah. So third quarter, mid third quarter, Kristen limped out. Don't think he came back after that, if I remember rightly. Mackenzie then got his fourth at the end of the third. Nick's had a double figure lead, and then started the fourth quarter. Alan with a couple of scores, Shelton as well with a couple of scores. Ryder's a bit of a run to get it to 81-75 with 5 to play.
Yeah, Shelton was an interesting thing in this game because he played a few more minutes than I thought he would, but he gave him some good energy. And it was, oh my God, I promised myself I would not say the word energy in this podcast. What have I done? What have I done? Anyway, he gave them some aggression and rebounding. Um, and I'm quite sure, although I'm quite sure he executed.
Mm,
I'm not quite sure what, but he executed.
mm,
And yeah, and that kind of helped them a little bit. But they were surviving those minutes without Mackenzie.
mm,
You know, in Cheshire, our peaks and troughs team. Um, I the problem in this game was kind of, you know, they've got this three centers problem, not a problem, Leicester, but you know, having three centers is always it's good and it's bad. It's great when if you're a bit injured or a bit beaten up. It's great if you can throw different looks at teams, but it gives a coach like decisions to make. And Edowu only had 12 and a half minutes in this game.
mm,
Edowu he didn't make a couple of shots early, but he never got into the game, so he was no impact in this basketball game. And that was because basically Shelton's rebounding was helping them defensively, and Cheshire obviously a rebounding team, an offensive rebounding team. And it was tough to play Shelton and Edowu at the same time, because when he did that at the end of the first quarter, I think there was a 14-0 run around the first
mm.
quarter break in the middle of
12-0.
the second quarter, 12-0 run.
Mm,
And that was a lineup situation, because it just wasn't, you know, those guys wouldn't have played together much, if at all. So then you've got the decision, well, I've got to play either Edowu um, or Shelton. Well, they're two very, very different individuals, players. Edowu's stretching the floor. He's helping your offense run at times when he wouldn't otherwise. Um, Not as effective playing at the four as it playing at the five. You don't get those shots. The reason
mm,
Skylar White gets all these shots is because he's playing at the five and he's matched up against all the opposition big guys. If Skylar White was playing at the four, that wouldn't be happening. So they lost to Doe in this game, which is quite a big thing. But the call was to continue to go with Shelton at the end, and they couldn't get stops. I mean, I didn't think either team's defense was very good in this game. I'll be
mm.
honest.
Well, White made a couple of timely threes, and I thought the game was done, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Less than 3 minutes to go. It was 89-77. I thought Leicester had a decent go at it in the fourth quarter, but as you say, couldn't get a stop. And if they got a stop, they couldn't get the defensive rebound, and Cheshire got a second chance at it. And honestly, I'd put the laptop down and was just watching it, and then suddenly Thomas to the basket, and then Thomas a three, and it was 89-82 with 2 to play, and I was thinking, well, it's still 7 points, it's still not over, and then Rideau got called for a charge with 1:39 to go, and I was like, oh no, I'm gonna have to
Here
note
we
down
go.
what's going on here because Leicester
Right.
get the ball back.
Well, historically, you know, I'm talking basically, when I mean historically, I mean basically ever since Rob's been there, Leicester have probably been the one team that when they were down 10 with 2 minutes to go, they would still give you the heebie-jeebies.
Mm,
They generally didn't beat themselves.
mm,
Um, and you know, I still remember them coming back for about 12 against us in about a minute and a half
mm,
in a game. I believe we beat them in overtime, but even so, I think, you know, just a nonsense comeback. And obviously there's a couple of finals as well. So if there's any team who can, you know, I think they beat Bristol last year, they nearly beat Bristol last year in the same situation. And Cheshire have had these kind of 2 minute brain fades all season.
mm, mm.
And they have, you know, particularly actually at Caledonia in one of the recent games that we saw down there, you know, they were up 10 and then
Yeah, yeah. It was the
there were a couple
trophy
of
game.
daft things,
Went to
trophy
overtime.
game and
There were the
unsportsmanlike.
one of the games against Leicester was a similar thing. Remember where they missed all those free throws and turned the
Yeah,
ball
and
over?
that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's kind of, they're a team that, you know, you live on your wits with.
Mm,
And with Leicester's 3 point shooting ability, you know, I mean, the Cheshire were always one possession away from putting the game away,
yeah.
but they never quite got to that point. You know, 10 points, 2 minutes to go, you're one possession away from putting the game away, one stop and one score. But if they make the next three plays of the game, and as you say, it's a 4 point game, and it's all on again. You've got to make
Yeah.
plays.
So
Which I can tell you.
123 to go. Mackenzie with the three, 89-85 the score. And then Jack just went too quick on the next play. They needed to take some time. He thought there was a
He
score at the
saw a
basket.
layup.
He saw a layup
Yeah,
and
he saw a layup,
but he
and
didn't
it wasn't
make
there when
it.
he.
So therefore
No.
it's too quick, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, he saw a layup, but he misjudged the level of resistance at the rim,
Mm, mm.
and yeah, it was a bad decision. Ultimately, it was a
It's,
Boussier decision against London.
yeah, 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 yeah.
He shot that three. It's
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
24 seconds are more important than a basket.
Mm,
you know, and but that kind of feeds into the panic. That's the thing with it being a final,
yeah, yeah.
and
Semi-final.
it's a player that you want to keep making plays, but
Mm,
you got to be time clock situation so important.
mm. So Allen then misses, but Thomas gets an offensive rebound. It comes out to Holmes, 57.5 seconds to go. He hits a three. It's a 1 point game, 89-88, and we're all scratching our heads there. How's this a 1 point game?
Yeah, because he made three threes in a row,
Yeah,
and it was a
yeah,
big
yeah.
shot.
Mm,
And it was a big shot by Holmes, to be fair, but it came because they got an offensive rebound. So
mm,
that's another play you haven't made. So if
mm,
you think about Cheshire, that's five plays in a row you haven't made. You've given up a three, you've got a charge, you've given up another three, you've turned the ball over on or turned the ball over on a bad choice of a layup. You then given up offensive rebound, and they've made and given up and they've knocked down a three. So you've got to make plays right to the end, particularly
mm.
against Leicester. And yeah,
Yeah, then
that's
Shelton was called for a foul, but it wasn't a shooting foul. 30 seconds to go, they did come up with a play because Holden got an offensive rebound off a White miss. And then Leicester committed a foul, so White goes to the free throw line. He's one of two for 90-88.
Yeah, the whole foul thing was interesting, wasn't it? Because
Mm.
when I saw Shelton commit that foul, I'm thinking, well, they're going to put Rideau on the line again
Yeah,
in
yeah.
the last game. What level of thought did they do to play in the Hacker Quincy routine?
Mm,
Because otherwise the foul from Shelton wasn't a very good foul, to be honest, other than
no.
to get you in the penalty. Um, but yeah, they gave up an offensive rebound.
Mm,
Cheshire, and that gave Cheshire a point.
mm.
Um, and then
Then Mackenzie
they,
drives, 18.9 seconds to go, gets it down one, obviously makes the free throw, and Leicester are
well,
ahead, 90-91.
I could have told it was coming. It's the
Mm,
Mackenzie. I think it was the horn set, but either if
mm,
it wasn't, it was a high screen. Mackenzie coming off to his left. He has this ability to come off to his left, and if the defender is there, has the ability to pull up and knock down the shot. And if the defender isn't there, he has the ability to finish at the rim. That is his pet play.
mm,
In fact, if you go back and watch the last 2 minutes of every quarter that Mackenzie's been in the game, or last minute of every quarter Mackenzie's been in the game for Leicester, when they need a bucket, that's what they go to. It's very
mm,
simple. There's no extra passing. It's the high screen. He comes off to his left, and the defenders, he has this little change of pace. He can get some contact, and he finishes. He's made a great play.
mm,
I mean, a great play to finish because he was being climbed all over. But Cheshire weren't aware of the danger beforehand. That's the first thing you have to stop with us if you're scouting them at the end of the game. That Kimber McKenzie going to his left around the screen without passing the basketball, and they didn't
mm,
do it. And the advantage, of course, being that he's a great free throw shooter as well.
mm,
So
mm.
3 point play.
So Leicester are ahead. There's 18.9 seconds to go. Obviously, Ben calls a timeout and doesn't advance the ball, so the shot clock is off. And I actually, during that timeout, said, Leicester should probably foul here, which is totally alien to my thinking is always trust your defense, play defense, trust your defense, don't worry about it, play defense, get a stop and win the game. But in this situation, I was like, Leicester should probably foul here because Cheshire will only make one at best. You'll get the ball back with, assuming you get a defensive rebound if it's the second one that's missed, with a shot to win it. But I don't think any sensible coach would actually,
I don't think any sane coach does that,
yeah, do that.
except for the fact that it's Rideau.
Yeah.
The only thing that, ultimately, at the end of the day, very few teams shoot more than 50% in the game.
Mm,
Probability is that you have more chance of getting stopped than giving up a score,
mm,
particularly in a game, like a situation like that, if you're locked in.
mm,
In that game, maybe not so much because the defense wasn't great. Okay. But the only thing is you've got a 40% foul shooter who's got the ball in his hands.
mm,
Do you want him to beat you at the rim? Or do you want to beat you at the foul line? That's a real decision to take. But from a pure coaching perspective, that would have been a ballsy call to beat a ballsy call. You know, I mean, given the opportunity, 1 point up with 18 seconds to go, you get to stop, you win the game, right? Saying, oh no, we'll let you have a chance to score 2-3 points, and then we'll back ourselves to score.
Yeah. No, as I say, on my couch watching on telly, that's what I thought. But I wouldn't do it if I was on the sideline. I don't think.
No, I think, as I say, I think I might have fouled Rideau the time before. After
Yeah.
Shelton committed that first foul,
Yeah.
I think I might have fouled him that time before they got the offensive rebound, they got the ball to White. But that's different. That's kind of, players often make. Rideau's shown himself to be an absolute gamer, right? And he strikes one as kind of the type of guy who might just, if he's on the line to win the game, he might just make them.
Yeah,
If
he
he's on
might.
the
Yeah,
line
yeah.
40, if he's on the line 45 seconds beforehand,
He might not. He might miss both.
psychologically, that's a very
Yeah.
different look.
So anyway, he
I'm not
drives.
going to turn around and say
Yeah.
I mean, it might have happened before. I can't remember that ever happening where you foul when you're up.
No. Oh, what?
You foul
No.
when you're because it just,
It doesn't make sense.
if
Doesn't
you
make
can't
sense. Yeah.
defend, then you
Yeah.
don't deserve to win.
Exactly. Yeah. So he drives to the basket through the contact off the glass and one, which was probably the worst outcome for Leicester because he's probably going to miss the free throw, and you've got a
Foul
live
shot, yeah.
ball situation down one. Whereas if you'd fouled him, even if he makes both and you're down one, you time out and advance the ball and draw up a play.
Yeah, it was a good miss. I mean, that was a good miss.
Yeah.
The one he missed after. I mean, the play. I mean, Law played. I mean, they shifted Law onto him. I don't know if that was in it. Maybe because Mackenzie had 4 fouls, or because he switched on screen. I don't think he did. I'd have to watch it back. But Law played kind of good initial defense on him. Rideau has this ability or this kind of his skill set is to go hard right, but a little bit like Rye, he creates contact with a bump. He
Yeah.
generally creates initial contact, but he doesn't
It's
create.
interesting when you see the replay on the bottom, you see his shoulder going like that, and Law goes back and then takes a swipe down at him, which is
Yeah,
what's called.
and what Rideau is good at is just making that contact because he doesn't extend his arm on that contact, which means the refs will very rarely call it unless it's egregious. So if Law's just kind of, it's that kind of gray area between what is strength, and what is unlawful force, and he gets away. I say he gets away with it a lot. He is very good at creating the first contact to knock the defender off balance with insufficient force for the refs to call a foul, and then adapting to that what's happened to make a play. That make any sense?
Yeah.
And that's what he did. So yeah, on another day, that could have been called a charge, but 5 seconds to go in a game, a 1-point game, he hasn't fallen over.
No, it's not.
You're not gonna. The ref's not going to make that call, and probably nor should he.
No. So he does miss the free throw, and Leicester get the rebound, but the pass kind of went past Mackenzie, so ended up with Thomas, who's obviously running. Clock's running; he's got to go. And I think if they wanted anybody to run the length of the floor and get a shot away, it was Mackenzie, and in the end, it was Thomas, and he heaved up a 3 on the buzzer. It didn't go.
That was a tough one. Yeah. I mean, it was a weird game, insofar as it was two teams who were kind of true to themselves, both their strengths and their flaws. I thought everything came out. You wouldn't say that either team was particularly controlled, but I thought that the major stat that came out of the game was that Mackenzie was plus 10 in 23 minutes. I think if he plays 33 minutes or even 29 minutes or 30 minutes, I think Leicester win that game. And that's the thing that you have in finals. In semi-finals and finals, it can be a couple of sliding doors moments here and there, which impact the personnel on the court. But I mean, I can't get away with giving up 17 3-point attempts to Skylar White, and I know he makes just enough of them whereby you think you're all right. I think he was 6 of 17.
6 of 17, yeah.
So what's that? 38%. If he's 4 or 17, you've done the right job. If he's 6 or 17, he's in a rhythm, he's comfortable, and he makes the ones that matter near the end. you know, you must have a scheme going into the game. Either you're switching stuff or you're rotating across the wing guy to take him to jam him on the catch because he's going to put the shot up anyway. And a lot of the shots he got were good looks.
Mm.
You know, so that wasn't great from Leicester's perspective. From Cheshire's perspective, you know, I didn't think they managed the game at all particularly well down the stretch. But they keep doing what they do,
Mm.
you
Yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah.
you know, for good or for bad.
Rye, 11 of 18, 27 points, 11 rebounds, 8 fouls drawn, 30 index. Sensational performance, really, from him.
Yeah.
White, we've talked about his 3-point shooting, 23 points and 6 rebounds. Rideau, 15.6 rebounds, 13 assists.
Yeah.
They were 12 of 20 from 3. So the rest of them didn't shoot too many, did they? And 15 offensive rebounds and 12 second chance points. Leicester, Allen, 20 points and 6 rebounds. Mackenzie Thomas and Holmes all had 13 points. Thomas also had 12 rebounds. 50 points in the paint, Leicester. Let's go to Sunday. And let's briefly touch on the Betty Cadona. It's get my words out. Betty Cadona Trophy. London Lions 83, Essex Rebels 67. 20-3 run in the first quarter made it 26-9, and that was basically that. But I thought fair play to Essex, who hung around, but there was never really a comeback on.
No, it was a little bit like a cat playing with a mouse. London just did what everybody expected them to do early. You might say they did their work early. And after that, Essex competed, showed good togetherness. London played with a degree of insouciance. They weren't, their shot selection wasn't as good as it could have been. If they needed a bucket, they were able to throw it down to Temi, who could get a layup whenever she wanted. And I kind of got bored by the end of the third quarter, so I didn't watch the fourth quarter. It's not because it's because of the game.
Yeah, it wasn't. It wasn't. I don't think you missed anything. Gustafsson, 15 points, 7 of 10 shooting, 8 rebounds. Fagbenley, 13 points. Katanec and Wilkinson, 12 points each. Rogan, I was really impressed with Rogan.
Yeah.
She was good. 15 points. Haynes, 12 and 2 to 10.
Let's be clear about this. I mean, this is a Eurocup funded team against a university team. You know, I mean, you know, we're not expecting, you know, what we're going to expect. I mean, I think to get what Essex produced was probably as much as anybody could expect. We've talked previously about the levels of inequality being even greater in the women's league than in the men's league. And I think that has to be the case, you know, and so
yeah, and the other thing is, Eurocup is borderline a EuroLeague team.
That borderline EuroLeague team, yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it would be a surprise to nobody if they win the Eurocup.
No, with Fagbenley and Gustafsson in particular, you know, I mean, you know, 2 WNBA potential players. Yeah, absolutely.
And they've got Petty now as well coming in.
Yeah, Petty, and it's just piling talent on top of talent. You know, not an awesome look, but we've said that last 3 years, and it's going to continue till it stops.
And if you saw
some investor in some Alabama backyard turns around and says, "Why are we doing this again?" and draws a line under a bit of paper.
If you saw my original tweet, ignore it. That was the 10th trophy in a row that the London Lions have won, which equals the record that Sheffield had. Sheffield won 10 in a row in the 90s. They actually won 24 out of 28. That's why it's called the Betty Cadona Trophy. She was that good. They were that good, Sheffield. So comfortable, basically, and they will go on and beat that 10 in a row record. So let's go to the men's game. London Lions 82, Cheshire Phoenix 98. Nawaba back and straight into the starting lineup, but they actually literally traded scores for the first 9:20 of this game. The first time that a team scored 2 consecutive scores was actually 3 free throws for Kristen in the last minute. It was the only time they'd not alternated scores in the whole of the first quarter.
Kind of the same. I mean, this is, I want to be careful in talking about this game because what Cheshire accomplished is what we didn't think could be accomplished.
Mm.
Right. Now, this time last week, you asked us who's going to win. I said, London don't win. It'd be remarkable.
Mm.
And I don't want to in any way kind of denigrate or put down the performance that Cheshire put in, or even kind of minimize it. It's really an astounding achievement. And particularly without Chargewell as well, who's a big piece of them. The dynamics of a final played in their favour, I think. A one-off game isn't about who's got the deepest bench. It's about who's going to show up on the day and play. We've seen that over the years. I know that.
Usually the bench is thin.
Usually
your rotation shortens in a final.
Your shorter bench wins, and I'm afraid this is the reality is that London didn't do that, and I thought they paid the price. I thought that Cheshire were true to themselves. I didn't think their defense was great at all in the first quarter. In fact, I was looking at thinking, are you going to really go into that screen for Tariq Phillip and give him an open three twice? Really? Is it because of the? But London have some very uncharacteristic individual performances, and Cheshire's defense actually grew into the game, if that makes any sense. But the first, and you have to go, but we have to also look at kind of the kind of the backdrop to this game, which was game at the Copper Box, probably November, maybe end of November, I'm guessing, where Cheshire played them all away. I think it was like 104-97 or something like that at the end. And both teams scored on each other. So Cheshire knew that they could score on London. And Cheshire needs serious game planning for. If you're going to defend them, you have to game plan for them really, really diligently. Because they know where their shots are coming from, which means you should know where their shots are coming from. So you've got to find a way of making those shots harder and taking away 10 out of those 70 possessions in a game to make the difference. Yeah, I didn't see that from London. They got 10 players. They probably haven't, if you think about it, they've played on Cheshire the same, but London's played on Saturday as well. So they probably haven't talked about Cheshire that much because they don't know who they're going to be playing. Right? They are a team which has played game after game after game and has this kind of confidence level, which is that we are the best. And not kind of we've just got to show up, but a confidence level that we are the best. And I thought their attention to detail all weekend was just lacking. I thought their coaching wasn't great. I thought it was very equal opportunity stuff. And that isn't the way you win finals. I don't care how sweet a guy is, to be honest. You can't be playing Gabe Olsen 80 minutes in a final. And Matt Morgan 20 minutes in a final. If he's your guy, he's your guy. Even if he's playing well or badly. Part of the reason that they're not playing well is because they're not getting the burn, they're not invested in the basketball game. And Cheshire just kept doing what they were doing. And Rideau, just like we've seen guys in previous games, point guards show up and just take over games. Rideau did it.
He had me shades of Larry Austin 2 years ago.
Yeah,
the guy who went there knew what it was, and knew he wanted to do it, and he was going to be the man on the day.
Yeah, and they didn't back down. I mean, one thing about Cheshire is, they talk. They're not afraid to back down. And because of that game they played against London at the Copper Box, I think they thought that they knew that they could have them. There was no when you simplify what you do, you have the ability to create ultimate confidence in how you do it. And that swagger that they have, and also they got a bit of hold, and Rye is kind of the opposite of that. Rye is the smart, Rye is Rye. If you talk about anybody in this league who's a silent assassin, it's Rye, because he makes layups, he makes the odd three, and then you look at the end, he's got 26 points and 12 rebounds. Not in this game, but that's who the silent assassin. So you have all of those things going on. But the first quarter, I think it was 30-26. I mean, there was no way no way in the world that a team who is hoping to win the Euro Cup should be giving up 30 points in the first quarter of a showpiece final. Not the showpiece, a showpiece final to a British Basketball League team. That just should not happen. You cannot, that that is a problem. And they did that because they got beat to the spot. They were allowed to get offensive rebounds. And London had a big schedule and they played Besiktas on Wednesday and Saturday and Sunday. But hang on, they got lots of players. That isn't going to fly. It comes to in the final. If you really want to win that final, I think they did want to win it. I just don't think they knew how. And that comes down to the structure of the players that they put on the court. Conor Morgan didn't start this game, and he started most of the season. And the downside to that was that then he comes off the bench, so he's playing with Luke Nelson, who doesn't really have that much of a doesn't have that many minutes in with compared to the other guys, and he was. He was the opposite of Conor Morgan. The Conor Morgan we've seen all season. He was the opposite of Conor Morgan this weekend.
Yeah, he was.
He was. I mean, and then and Cheshire just basically kept putting the pressure on them. And Forrester's theory of finals is that someone cracks, and they cracked.
They did. They nearly cracked earlier, actually. But
Yeah.
let's work through to it.
Yeah.
Jack and Rye back-to-back threes, 34-40. London called a timeout. They responded with the next 10 points to lead 44-40. And then Nelson had his third foul just on half time. And it was 49-45 at halftime. 6:34 third quarter. Double technical in a final, Dave. Just for you. The Forest.
I'll live with that one, actually.
Yeah, they did.
Because I think it was kind of a nose to nose thing, which came out of a kind of a shoulder brushing. I think it's very difficult for a referee in that situation to pick the bones out of whose fault it was. And I also think that according to the people in the arena, things were getting pretty chippy then.
Yeah. It looked chippy.
I think that was just a kind of you two shut up.
Yeah.
Because
I think was it on the next play or something or other, there was then just like a global anybody, bench players, fans, anybody says anything's getting a T next time out.
Absolutely. And that so I'm not against that one, particularly in a final. I think ultimately I can live with that. You don't want people squaring up to each other. Like that.
Particularly when it's on the bubble at that time.
And you can't tell who there's nobody you could tell who started that.
No. So we were just talking about cracking. I think they almost cracked London in the third quarter. Cheshire. There was Morgan just with a just uncharacteristically poor pass cross court.
2 passes. He threw the ball away twice in a row. Once in the post and then in the transition. Then committed a ridiculous and sportsmanlike. Crazy foul. Just hooked him up. Which told me that his head was just totally gone. That just happens with whatever. And this is kind of everything's linked. It's like Clouseau stuff. You're trying to Jordan Taylor. Saturday night, Saturday evening, he does what he does. He doesn't do that. Morgan, Sunday afternoon, he does that. He does not do that. So there's stuff going on there. I have no idea what it is. No idea. Part of money is great, but money can bring problems. You just brought a new guy in from the NBA, Nawaba, from the G League. Nawaba, he played 7 games, and suddenly he's kind of starting. He's main guy. How's that affected chemistry with everybody else? I'm sure they all like each other. Everybody always says they like each other, but you don't test chemistry while you're winning and while you like each other. You test chemistry when you're
through adversity.
And Cheshire have been together all season, and London haven't. And Cheshire have probably figured that this game for Cheshire is undoubtedly the circle on their calendar. And it did not appear that was the way it was for London, because the bit you're going to get to is basically Jordan Taylor single-handedly saved them from cracking in the third quarter.
So then, the point at which that unsportsmanlike foul, it was 7 points in a row from Cheshire. They ended up going 12 in a row. They were 56-67 ahead. There's 1:32 to go, and this is the point. I'm like you, going, whoa! Here we go. Boom, it's gone. And then Jordan Taylor three threes in an 11-0 run around the fourth quarter break. I think he had 9 of the 11. And suddenly it's 70-67 and
Yeah,
all
but of
is
course,
right with
but
him.
what was the converse of that? The converse of that was that Rideau had picked up his third foul and Rideau
Yeah,
was off the court.
yeah,
And
yeah.
they didn't bring Hudson in, so they played without a point guard.
Mm.
Now, if you're going to play organized chaos, like Leicester, like Cheshire, sorry, then when your point guard isn't there, the organized disappears. All you have left is
Chaos.
chaos.
Mm.
And I wouldn't say they self-destructed, but their offense, they didn't have the ability for Rideau, who they basically couldn't guard all night. And he's a guy who really you wouldn't mind sitting there bombing threes all night.
Mm.
He only
And he
ever seems to
made a few in this one,
he
didn't
made a few in this
he?
game, but
Yeah,
even so, I don't care. You wouldn't
yeah,
mind
yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah.
He hurts you at the rim. He hurts you with his penetration. He hurts you with his behind the back passes to Skylar White and all that stuff,
Mm.
right? If he makes threes, you live. Okay. He only ever seems to dribble with his right hand, and yet they could not guard him.
Mm.
Right? Now, that says a lot about the kind of, and to be fair, Fletcher only ever used to dribble with his left hand and they couldn't
Mm.
guard him.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
it's not about, it's not necessarily
Fletcher's
weak.
going left. Just stop him going left. It's
Yeah,
easy. Just stop him
it's
going left.
not necessarily about, a player having a weakness,
Yeah.
but if they're so practiced at what they do that they
Mm.
can manipulate things the way they want them, which is what he showed. And what he has, Fletcher had kind of the balletic kind of athleticism. What Rideau has is the strength.
Yeah.
People bounce off him.
He's a running back, isn't he? He
Yeah,
goes, he just
he's
plows
kind of a
through a
combination
hole.
of Fletcher. He's a
Yeah.
combination of Fletcher and Gores,
Mm.
basically. People bounce off him. Gerald Brooks is
Yeah,
one of
Gerald
them.
Brooks, good
Bounce
one.
off him.
Yeah.
Sorry, from Sheffield. And but he when he was wasn't on the court, their offense disappeared and Taylor took over. And you thought at that point, well, okay, eventually the pedal's going to come to the metal. But then Taylor came out again a couple of minutes later, got a blow before he went back in.
Mm.
And every single London player shrunk from what they've showed us. Cheshire's defense got better. They started running around and challenging more. Rebounding wise, they competed like heck on the defensive glass, despite the fact they were undersized. The guards got in and got rebounds. Jack got rebounds. Kristen got rebounds. White basically manned up inside and didn't give anything easy. And London were reduced from this kind of beautiful 3-out 1-in 3-point heavy offense that they've ran all season, 4-out 1-in 3-point heavy offense that they've ran all season, to basically chucking up a bunch of contested mid-range jump shots, and they didn't make them.
No, they didn't.
And and remarkably, it was whilst Cheshire did keep scoring, it was London's offense which dried up, and Cheshire's defense which stepped up.
Yeah.
And that was totally against the character of everything.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Rideau had 8 in an 11-0 run. He actually got with 5 to go, he got his 4th foul and then immediately hit a 3 to cap that 11-0 run. And it was 70-78.
I think there was this suggestion, you might bring him out for a minute. And I'm like, no. There's no way in the world after what happened around the quarter break that he's coming out until he's fouled out.
Yeah.
You don't save players in a final with 4 fouls.
What you do is you hope that 5th foul comes with 2 minutes to go and you're up to 18 already.
Absolutely, but more importantly, every possession becomes important. Why would you voluntarily remove your best player from possessions? On the basis that something might happen to him. Well, if he fouls out, he fouls out. I mean, I got burnt by that once. I kept Gores in the game in the cup final against Leicester, which Rose's favourite game, and he got his 4th foul at 7 minutes 30, and he got his 5th foul at 7 minutes 20, which was never good. No. I think if I remember, the 5th foul was a reach in from like 84 feet away from the basket.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. It wasn't the smartest foul he'd ever committed.
No. So yeah, but no, you keep him in, and he made a 3, and that at that point in time, he's got a bit between his teeth. He's playing 32, 33 minutes in this game. White is playing lots of minutes. Somebody else
Yeah.
played 30. I think Jack might have played
Jack, I
35
think it
minutes.
was.
Somebody played
Yeah.
35 minutes
Yeah.
from all these London guys. They're in and out all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're having, there's no rhythm between any of them and what they're doing. The starting five's been messed around. Olasheny's playing really limited minutes. Matt Morgan has what, 5 points in the game?
Mm,
And people are saying he's the league MVP, and
mm,
you know, and he has 5 points in the game. You know what they really impacted. They didn't beat themselves because Cheshire beat them, but they didn't help make it easier to be beat by them.
yeah. Yeah.
You know.
So 3:56 to go. Kristen got his fourth foul, and it's a 6-point game. But then they had an 8-0 run, which with 2:29 to go ended in a white 3-point game. At that point, I tweeted ball game
Yeah, and it was
74-81.
like you know,
Mm, mm,
London aren't scoring. They haven't got a lineup out there who's
mm,
scoring.
mm,
They don't seem to know where they're going for a basket. It's everything that's different from, they shrunk.
mm,
I don't know if well, outside of Taylor, they cracked.
mm,
Now there's also many reasons for that. There could be stuff going on internally. It could just be that they didn't get the magnitude of the game until it was too late. And at that point, or the magnitude of the game in Cheshire's mind, it may
mm,
be that they still don't consider it the most, it's an in-season tournament. Maybe they still don't consider it the most, substantial, significant of games.
mm.
But to us who've been around to Cheshire,
Mm.
it's a season.
Yeah.
Him,
Yeah,
it's to win
you
stuff.
see the camera on Rachel in the crowd
Yeah,
bawling her eyes out. That's what it means to them. And those
aye.
players go into the crowd and they know all those people. They know what it means to
Yeah,
those
and that's what you
people. Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
That's what you do. The best time is afterwards when we're spraying the champagne, not
Yeah.
on the
Yeah.
court, because we
Yeah.
have to pay for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You go around the fans, you spray the champagne,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
you
Because
invest
you have
time.
that connection. That's the thing is, and maybe London, maybe that's one of the downsides of being in London and being a big club, if you like. Maybe they don't have that direct connection. Although they look like they did last year, to be fair, but
No, I think
in
to be
the
fair, to
way
be
that all
absolutely
those
fair,
Cheshire, all of those Cheshire players know all of those people in orange t-shirts because they see them
yeah,
every week. They chat to them after, so they understand what it means, and they will have learnt the history of Cheshire, whether that's from the fans or from Ben or from whatever.
yeah,
And actually,
yeah,
that's part of the thing, isn't it? It's the connections that you make.
big time in big games, absolutely. And I think it's a bit harsh on London. I mean, Ben got his shot at the end by saying, "Oh, they had no fans," but from um, what I gather, their organisation's been inept this week.
Mm,
Insofar as the tickets didn't go on sale to their fans until
mm,
basically yesterday, to sit in a certain area. So any fans that were there were spread all over. There's some tweets that have gone out from quite reputable London Lions fan sources,
mm. Yeah,
to
yeah,
talk about that, which
yeah,
I absolutely believe.
yeah.
There's been limited social media engagement about this
Mm,
with them,
mm,
and this is the whole kind of professionalism thing. Oh, we're raising the bar of the league, all that stuff. And the Lions are the only team out there who hasn't filed their accounts in time.
mm,
The company's house are a month late, right? They haven't got the fans in the t-shirts in the crowd. They haven't got them the seats that they haven't opened the tickets up properly. They haven't put forward any realistic social media engagement at all. So what actually is professional? Is professional just throwing a ton of money at stuff and having everything else take care of itself? Or is professional going the extra mile and doing what Cheshire and Leicester and Caledonia to a lesser degree because the travel did, when having their fans in there in t-shirts at the game in a certain block, being around, of building things up with them.
mm,
This is a real conversation. Money can almost cover up the true state of things. It can cover up the true state of what actually is professional. Professional. I mean, I'm not going to go. Well, I am going to go there, right? And I'm sure this is entirely wrong, but the way that London, John Taylor, Conor Morgan, the way that they performed this weekend, that looked like a team that I've seen that kind of performance in teams before that have had a paycheck missed.
mm.
I'm not saying they have had a paycheck miss,
Yeah.
but the mindset of it, something is not right there. Whether it's just focus, whether the coach didn't put a um, high value on the competition, they cracked. They lost their cool, and they are too good. That team is too good. Those players are too good to go down like that. Yeah, they can lose in a shootout to Cheshire, but in a big game with the lights on in front of X thousand people, that team loses by 18. And something, that's just not because Cheshire played well. Well, Cheshire did play well. That's because there is something not right in the city and not right in the city of London, in the campaign in London. Now, maybe they just got cocky, but that doesn't, after beating Besiktas, but that doesn't explain
Well,
the
my thing
Taylor
about
stuff.
it was
That
I
doesn't
just,
explain the Morgan stuff.
yeah. I just assumed there was an element of I felt bad for Cheshire today because I thought there's no way London are going to. You're from Cheshire's point of view, I thought they needed London to be better yesterday so that they would think this
Yeah.
is no big deal. And I actually thought the fact that London weren't very good yesterday was going to play against Cheshire because they weren't going to do that 2 days in a row. And actually,
Yeah.
they
Well,
they
it's just, as I say, it's not, it isn't so much the scores of the games. It's the Matt Morgan does not go for 4 points in 20 minutes. Really? The guy we've seen all season who's borderline unguardable in this league? Really? The Cheshire are not a team that is about stopping people. Right? That's not what they're about. They will do their best and they play, as I say, good defense in the second half of this game. But ultimately, their first priority is to outscore you. That just shouldn't, that is shouldn't, there is something not, as I say, it just struck me there's something not right, and I don't know what it is, and it's all speculation. But everything in my bones tells me, on what I've just seen, on the evidence I've just looked at, that there's something not quite right there. And it may well be it just comes down to the fact they didn't focus on it. And maybe and there's a bit of dissension in the camps because of that. But and maybe it wasn't important. Maybe it wasn't as important to them because it was an in-season tournament. But that's a pretty generous appraisal, I think.
Well, it didn't look like that in the 3 weeks leading up to it, did it?
No, it didn't.
No,
Absolutely spot on.
that was why these were easily their two worst performances, and I include the Bristol game in that, to be honest
Yeah.
with you,
Oh, well, the Bristol game
of the
count, yeah.
trophy. Yeah,
Well,
but
yeah,
I thought they played better in. I know they were massively undermanned and whatever, but I thought they played all right in that game with
yeah.
what they had. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree. And just from the whole thing of starting Suluwadi on Saturday, from having Nwaba not play Saturday but be fit to play on Sunday, it's just a little bit. I say it's a little bit. We don't need him to win on Saturday, but we'll use him on Sunday. That changes your lineups. It changes everything. He's a new player anyway. I just thought it was a bit hubristic. I just think they took the whole thing for granted to a certain degree, and I think they got bitten on the nose. And yeah, I'm nailed
So
on. You
we'll
put it on the coach when they win, and you say he's doing a fantastic job in Europe.
yeah
It has to go on the coach.
yeah.
Don't care what you say, that goes on the coach, that goes on the structure, which is done that. No way that team with that talent loses a game by 18 or 15 or 16 or 16 in a final to a British Basketball League team. No way that should happen.
So we will end on Cheshire because it's only right and proper.
Absolutely.
The sixth time they've won this competition, still one behind your Newcastle Eagles, Dave. But
I think they'll catch up at this rate.
yeah. But as I said on Twitter, I think that's the 11th trophy that they've won as a club, and nothing will beat the sweep. But that's got to be right up there with anything they've ever done.
I think. I mean, you go back 30 years, and let's provide some historical context for those who've been deprived of it for the past 2.5 days. If you go back 30 years. You're probably going back to when Sunderland beat Kingston in the one tournament.
92, yeah.
92, the one tournament.
91, 92.
91, 92, I think. Or 1991, maybe.
Which
it
was
the
91,
Docklands,
the
one
cup
tournament
final.
that I think Sunderland beat them in the semi-finals, maybe, right?
They did, yeah.
The one tournament that Kingston didn't win in the 3-year period.
Yeah.
In relation to shocks, probably then maybe Plymouth coming up to the arena.
My only pushback on that one is you did have Bucknell and was who else was on that team?
Oh, they had some good players. Clyde
Patterson
Vaughan.
and Clyde
Clyde
Vaughan.
Vaughan.
It was,
No,
yeah,
that's a fair.
yeah,
It's a fair pushback.
yeah,
But it's also right to say that it was no
yeah,
silly
yeah,
dom.
yeah, yeah. It was
Um,
as you say it was the semi-final. They beat Leicester 88-81 in the final.
yeah. And yeah, Sunderland had a lot of talent, but the next time they came up to Crowtree, they beat them by 35.
Yeah.
And so there was a difference in resources then as well, to be fair.
Mm,
Even though Sunderland had a lot of players, had
mm,
some good players, there was still a difference in resources. Um, but then you're looking at probably Plymouth coming up to Newcastle and winning the trophy when they hadn't won
mm,
one.
mm,
When the Eagles had won, this is before my time, but the Eagles had won, they'd been winning regularly. They'd won the clean sweep the year before.
mm,
And Plymouth come up with Lasker and Martin and Cohen, Gavin Love and
mm,
Carlton Aaron, and win on Newcastle's home court. That wouldn't have been a disparity of resources then, but that was certainly kind of a very unexpected win.
yeah.
After that,
Leicester 2001 playoffs, maybe.
that's the 2001 playoffs. But the
Mm.
playoffs, they had talent, didn't they? They had
Yeah,
Blaylock
they
and
did have they had an unbelievable starting five, and
they had
Carl
a better
Brown off
team
the
at the end of the
bench.
season. I mean, they
Yeah,
finished eighth in the league, but
yeah,
they had a better team at the end of the season than they did at the beginning.
yeah, yeah,
And I mean, I watched Ralph Blaylock play for years.
yeah, yeah,
You'd never felt like you didn't have a chance if he was
yeah,
playing for you.
yeah,
You know, but I mean, to 8v first is a thing. But there was more.
mm,
I think there was no London in the league then, so
mm,
I think it's probably number one
mm,
historically. I think it's probably number one, that
mm,
win. Um, that's a 10-man Euro Cup roster, which has just pulled in a guy who's played 237 games in the NBA mid-season because they were a bit short.
mm,
And you've come out and you've handed it to them.
mm,
So I don't think there is better. I
mm,
mean, as I say, um, I didn't, and the crazy thing is, didn't see it coming.
no,
Paul Blake, the Eagles only texted us halfway through the third quarter saying, "Oh, Cheshire are hanging around." And I came back and said, "Yeah, but I don't think the defense is going to hold. London's going to win this by 10." It
mm.
just goes to show how much I know.
Yeah, yeah,
Rubbish, absolute rubbish. I didn't feel confident enough to put that onto the world for the world to see. But I just didn't, even halfway through the third quarter.
mm,
I did not see that coming. And it's the fantastic um, pleasure that you get from sport.
mm,
Just like you didn't see England 190 runs behind in India,
mm,
coming back to score 420 and bowl them out. Things change. The sport is so full of vagaries and individual
mm,
and team sport is so full of individual um, considerations,
mm,
all kind of plugging together to form part of a team. There are so many moving parts to all of it. That's why it's so great.
mm,
And yeah, that's one for the ages. I'm
mm,
just a little bit disappointed we didn't get more of the context of that, because I thought um, that was the biggest story out of the whole thing.
mm,
This is not normal.
mm.
This is an significant achievement, and it's not because Cheshire aren't very good, or it's not because Cheshire don't have good players. Cheshire are not a bunch of guys who've been rounded up the back of the YMCA
Yeah, yeah,
to
yeah,
play
yeah,
basketball.
yeah.
Cheshire have high-level professionals who've come from, Cam Christen's come off the bench for him. He was a player of the year in the Division One conference.
Mm,
Cameron Holden at Towson, he's at Aaron Wright at Dartmouth. These guys are really talented players. They would have played in bigger games than this in college and high school and all sorts
mm.
of stuff. So it's not a question of them kind of raising their game like the plucky little underdogs from
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Basham Town or someone
yeah,
or
yeah.
somewhere. They just went toe to toe with a uber resourced team, an uber resourced and uber hyped team, and they beat them.
Mm,
Then they gave him a beatdown. And
mm,
there's no other way of talking about it other than to say, what a fantastic accomplishment for all of them, for the coach all the way on down.
yeah,
And what does it say to us? It says to us, well, maybe, I think we kind of covered it a little bit earlier on where we said, well, you've still got to throw the ball up. London should win everything, but
yeah,
you've still got
yeah,
to throw
yeah,
the
yeah.
ball up. So I don't think we're entirely kind of side blasted by it. I think I think it wasn't that we didn't see it, we said it couldn't happen, just that we didn't think it would. What does it say um, for the league? I suppose it gives everybody a degree of hope that you can compete. But I think we knew that anyway, because I think we've seen from the performances of the teams in Europe, and also from the way that Cheshire have played, Leicester have played, Sheffield at times have played. That London are a team you can challenge. So is that good for the league? Probably. What about the competition? Well, the crowd weren't great on Saturday, which is unfortunate. Um, the the final four in the middle of the season, we'll see if it works. It is certainly a focal point. I get that. It does, and the argument is it a better focal point than just having a final? Having 4-2. It did strike me that it did take me back on the Saturday. I was looking at it thinking, we used to play these games at Aston Villa Leisure Centre in semi-finals. It used to be, or the far less impressive Coventry Sky Dome.
Coventry Sky Dome.
I'm not a fan of Coventry Sky Dome.
No.
It was ice hockey arena for basketball. But it was always cold. But Aston Villa Leisure Centre was brilliant. Because it was because it was quite vertiginous, the seats.
Yeah.
So you'd have about 6, and it's knocked down now, so you couldn't go back there. Under a bypassing.
It was the A38M. I think.
Yeah, the type of place you would happily get mugged twice a week, I'd imagine.
It's the sort of place where you charge £3 to get into the car park. Your windows would still be smashed in anyway.
Yeah, sorry, the good people of Birmingham, but it was brilliant, and they used to have semi-finals there, and they were, it was a really, really good environment. I'm still not sold on the kind of the semi-finals in the big arena. I get that it's a weekend thing, and I get that helps for TV and all of that stuff. But I remember when we had the weekends at the end of the season, and the Saturdays at the end of the Saturdays were really quite inconclusive and a little bit anticlimactic. So I do think they've got some thinking to do about that. It will probably the Cheshire winning will certainly give it a shot in the arm. I think that has to be. Nobody likes a procession. I'm not having it with people saying that the league is still up to play for. The league is not up to play for. The league is finished. The second place might be up to play. Obviously, it's going to be interesting 2nd to 8th if anybody's bothered enough. But I think it's quite clear from all of this that London's focus is now going to be on Euro Cup and the Euro Cup basically alone, because they're aiming to get into EuroLeague. And so Euro Cup it is, and hopefully the accounts will come out soon.
Right, we go back to the regular season, a malarkey next week. I don't know if I'm working or not. My phone's too far away to check, so
I'm going to Philadelphia, so we got a chance to start that one next week.
Okay,
I'm going to Philadelphia on Friday for a week to catch up with Embiid and co.
Nice.
Yeah,
well, enjoy that, and any Cheshire fans who are listening to this, I'm assuming you're not listening on the way home. I'm assuming you're listening later on in the week. Enjoy your celebrations. Well done to Ben and the team. An absolutely excellent performance to win today. And Dave and I will be back again next week to do it all over again. But for now, goodbye.